check out Paddy Power's new and exclusive Cash Card Plus, available to use online, at ATMs, or even down the local. Paddy Power, you beauty.
What a week that was. Cheltenham 2017 promised much and delivered even more. Welcome along to the Racing Post Review Postcast. We're going to look back on a memorable and epic week. We're going to look ahead to see if there's any value either in the Grand National, which is coming up, or the 2018 Cheltenham Festival. Yes, indeed. You people who get annoyed by the build-up to Cheltenham, we're going to start it now, OK? I am Bruce Millington, and I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by one of the Racing Post's new young guns. It's Maddie Plale. And also one of our veterans, steady hands, Nick Watts. And also over in Ireland, we've got independent racing expert Brendan Duke. We are going to start in this first segment with the steeplechasing, and we'll look at the Gold Cup. First of all, what do you think the Gold Cup was in terms of 2017? Was it a vintage? Was it epic? Was it run-of-the-mill? You kick off, Maddie.
I don't know. It's hard to say. Initially going into it, I thought maybe it's not going to be that great. And I don't know if it was to do with how slow they went, but it was really competitive. Like, there was so many of them in with a chance over the second last. I think that made it a really good spectacle. It was a good winner. Sizing John did everything right, but there was just that little bit something that I can't say was absolutely outstanding for me. I don't know.
OK, time will tell then. Nick, what do you think of Sizing John? Decent, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he was very decent. And yeah, it might not have been the best Gold Cup ever, but that doesn't really bother me. I don't care about that. What we want is entertainment and a good race, and it was a classic race. Cheltenham, for 3/4 of it, looked as though he's going to exercise the demon to the last 2 years. But unfortunately for his fans, of which I was one, Cheltenham did what he normally does, in that he travels really well and then doesn't find, does he?
He made that Rick 2 out, didn't he, as well, which stopped his momentum. Brendan, do you go along with that as well? Because I just think last week was full of fantastic racing, and I don't actually really care whether overall it was a great Cheltenham Festival or not. You know, you're going to get some races that are above average and some that aren't. Do you agree that we should just savour each individual contest?
I do now in hindsight. Going over, I was there. This meeting is bereft of stars, and they seem to be dropping by the hour, never mind by the day. But you're right, competition is the essence of sport, and there really were some fantastic races. I think were there 3 races decided by a nose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I backed all 3 seconds of that.
Yeah. I'm sure we have some happy stories to tell the listeners as well. And the Gold Cup, no less, probably not a vintage renewal, but a fascinating race throughout.
What was your big takeout from the Gold Cup, Brendan?
I suppose the takeout for me was the ride on Sizing John, because the concern with him beforehand was he got a bit lit up in Leopardstown, and there were a couple of stages when obviously it's uphill and down Dale and Cheltenham, and when he started running downhill, I just thought he was going to get away from Robbie, but he somehow managed to just bury him in behind on the inside and get a hold of him again. And he never asked him. Obviously, these 2 mile chasers are capable of really quick, exuberant jumps. He never asked him. He kept just kind of getting him into the bottom of the fences and allowing him to pop. And he never lost any ground offences, but he never got lit up because he winged one. I just thought it was a fantastic ride.
OK, I'm going to read out Paddy Power's prices for the 2018 Gold Cup, and then each of you has got to come up with a long-range selection. It's a free shot. By the time next year comes around, people will have forgotten, and then if it wins, we can get to replay it on this broadcast next year, and you sound very shrewd. So we'll start off 5-1 Thistlecrack, 5 Sizing John, 6 York Hill, 12 Native River, 14 Cheltenham, 14 Might Bite, 25 Q Card, 33 Disco. Maddie, you go first.
I would say I'm quite biased in I must be the biggest Thistlecrack fan out there. And because I didn't think this year was a great renewal, I think I can sort of abandon Sizing John a bit. Native River's very admirable, but maybe he's just reached his ceiling. York Hill, I don't buy this whole Gold Cup horse thing. I think the way he finished in the JLT, you know, top notch, who is an admirable yardstick, yes, but he's no Gold Cup class, you wouldn't think. You know, got so close to him. He's a bit of a danger to himself, York Hill. So it is a big if Thistlecrack can come back as good as he was, but
you're going to keep the faith.
Yeah, I've got to, haven't I?
You certainly do, yeah, absolutely. Watsy, what do you think? Is there any value in there?
I don't know if he's value, but I'd be opposed to Maddie on this one, and not like the York Hill a lot. One of the most interesting quotes that Robbie Power gave after the Gold Cup, he said a lot of these Gold Cup winners in their formative years, they have good ability over 2 miles. War of Attrition had it, Kicking King had it. There's several that were good over those shorter trips. York Hill won at Tolworth last season. He's got a good form over 2.5. Ruby's sure that he'll stay further. And Ruby is the key to this horse because he rides him so well. Manages to conserve that, conserve him and can just keep a lid on his temperament for kind of that finishing burst. And I think he can hold that out to 3 miles too. And he would be the one for me.
Do you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they did a Vautour and said, we're going to go for the Gold Cup, we're going to go for the Gold Cup. Last minute said, we'll go for the Ryanair. And then he'll actually bolt up in the Ryanair.
This is the thing. We've got to have our first conversation about what Willie Mullins' strategy is going to be here. Because he's got Duvan, who you'd think might be the 2-miler, the chosen 2-miler. Undersow's still going to be the king of the Ryanair. So what's he going to do with York Hill? York Hill is the new Vroom Vroom Mag, Brendan, isn't he? And he'll basically be entered for absolutely any race. And by the way, I hate to diss the Mag, but isn't it nice that we don't really have to worry anymore about what she's going to go for because she's basically not good enough? Are you finally going to admit that, Brendan?
She may not be as good as I thought she was, but that was a lofty target. But I imagine Paul Townend might be doing trips to Cheltenham next year because he gave her some tour of it this year. It really was, and he's a fine jockey. I just do not know what possessed him. 5 wide the whole way, no cover. Bizarre stuff, but anyway, yes, she's not as good as I thought she was. You are correct, Bruce.
Still damn good though. Still an admirable mare, and of course she may go for fencing now. But basically, we're talking about the Gold Cup next year. Who will Willie's chosen one be, and who's the value? Do you think?
Well, I think when you were discussing it there, York Hill would be more likely than Undersow, I would say. Although if Undersow goes for the King George, which seems possible, it might force their hand. But they could both go. I mean, the owners, you would imagine, will both want to have a Gold Cup horse. And York Hill was very good. He surprised me. He didn't turn a hair in the parade ring. He was relatively relaxed in the race. They might be just getting a hold of him. It's conceivable he could stay.
So who would you be backing at this stage? You're probably far too shrewd to back anyone at this stage. But if you had to,
well, normally I wouldn't because of the perils of anti-post betting. But if I had been pricing up the Gold Cup, I'd make Mike by favourite. So how you can come up with 14-1, I do not know. So I'll have to back that.
Yes, that we need to talk about Mike Bite, don't we? Because I mean that was an absolutely extraordinary race and an extraordinary performance. And
yes.
I mean, you know, He's not going to do that every single time. I think he's kind of got himself a bit of a reputation as a bit of a kind of, how can I say, a kind of circus performer of a horse now, hasn't he? Had that terrible fall at Kempton and then the weird kind of Ingemar Stenmark slaloming up the home straight there. Ask your dad, Maddie. But we've got to remember he's got a serious engine. I mean, to recover from what he did and win that was extraordinary, Maddie, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it was one of my favourite moments of the whole meeting, just because I've never seen anything like that in my life. To go as far clear as he did so easily, he's just an absolute machine. Obviously, he's got a massive kink in him, and everyone makes this big deal of him being out of Scorpion, including me, because there can be quite scary characters to deal with. But I think, you know, I said to someone the other day, if something could lead him in the Gold Cup for long enough, then you just don't know, do you? I mean, he jumps wonderfully, besides this vendetta he seems to have against the last. But I don't know. He's one of those that he's a bit like York Hill and Undersow. He's just scarily good, but he has that edge about him.
Yeah, what do you make of Mike Bite, Watsy? 3-1 with Paddy Power for the King George. Thistlecrack 5-2, York Hill 7-1.
Yeah, I love him for the King George. I think he's a very likely winner of that. And I've got to hand it to Tom Siegel, who wrote in the Weekender a few weeks ago when he was 33-1. And mentioned him in relation to the King George. So if he did that, then followed it through, he's got a good bet. Just looking at the Paddy Power price in front of me, as Brendan said, Mike Bite at the same price as Jack Adam for the Gold Cup. That's ridiculous, surely. Jack Adam won't even go for the race. If anything, he'll come back in trip for the Ryanair. Could be Willie Mullins' Ryanair chase horse. Mike Bite should be half that price. And whether I'd fancy him to see it out of another couple of furlongs at Cheltenham, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah,
he was wandering around at the end of 3 miles there. They'll be snapping at his heels in the Gold Cup, but yeah, in terms of price, 14-1's too big.
You'd have to take a chance with him.
Yeah, so someone said he was really tired at the RSA. No, he wasn't, because once Marinero and Whisper went past him, he ran on again and actually managed to win. I don't buy that he was tired, although I don't think it was the best renewal of the RSA. But does it matter?
But you never know, though. You just don't know. You don't know with that one. It's one of those races you have to judge. once the forms, they've had a few more runs. Let's talk about the Grand National then, because obviously that was a big upheaval there. Paddy Power now bet on the Grand National, 8-1 Minella Rocco, 12 Vieux Lion Rouge, 14 The Last Samurai, 14 Definitely Red, 16 Cause of Causes, 16-1 for Arthur and Black Lion, 20 more of that. Watsy, any national thoughts arising from Cheltenham?
Not from the Gold Cup particularly, the ones we got written down here. Minella Rocco, he ran a good race, but he'd fallen on his 2 starts prior to that. I'm not sure you can trust his jumping. More of that was just ordinary in the Gold Cup. I'm not sure he'd even stay the trip. Safir Dura is the other one. He's a hard horse to like. I think he's had a few chances, Safir Dura. There's one horse, I put Carol's Destre up anti-post when the weights came out, and that was largely because of his great run in the Hennessy. When he was very, very close to beating Native River. Native River did do something for the form last week by running a cracker in the Gold Cup. So I would go back to Carol's Destre, who's double carpet, I think.
Any national thoughts? Any fresh national thoughts, Brennan Duke?
Not particularly fresh. I was liking the Rocco and the lead up to it because of the class angle, and I mean you're not guaranteed he'll stay, but he stayed 4 miles so well at the previous Cheltenham Festival that you would imagine he'll stay 4.5 miles standing on his head. They'll go a mad gallop, which will suit him fine if they can just keep his jumping together. Noel did again a fine job in the Gold Cup and just getting a bit of confidence into him early, because he had obviously a dismal prep with the 2 falls, but that race will have done him the power of good, and he's entitled to be favoured, I think.
Is 8's on the meagre side, or could you stomach a bit of that?
It's fairly tight now. I mean, he certainly won't be any shorter on the day. It'll be tens the field on the day.
He will be once the old on-course bookmakers get hold of them all, mate.
Oh yeah, no.
No, you're right, in the morning.
Yeah.
Maddie, who wins the 2017 Aintree Grand National and why?
What a question. To be honest, at the minute, I'd probably be wanting to go with Cause of Causes, because he just seems to come alive at this time of year. I mean, you saw him in the cross country. Everyone was saying, I don't know if he'll be able to do it again this year. And he absolutely powered up the hill. It's such a tricky race. There's quite a few that I like in it. I think One for Arthur's got great profile coming into the race. In terms of the Gold Cup as a guide to the Grand National, I'm not really a fan this year. I think Minella Rocco, if the fences were regulation fences, then I'd be all over it. But you just can't trust him as far as you can throw him. The same sort of goes with More of That. He's very fragile.
Oh, I can't. I just don't get the whole More of That thing.
No, neither
I
do
really
I.
don't. That confidence. I've heard it a million times. He's the best horse we've ever had. He just isn't that good.
He's had so many chances to prove it, and he's got his own sort of issues with his breathing and God knows what else. I just don't really see the appeal anymore. Safir Dura, I thought he ran a really good race in the Gold Cup for a while. It was really good to see him run well, but Grand National trip, don't necessarily think he'll get it, and he doesn't really finish off his races, does he? I mean, he'll come there and he'll look like he's gonna, really put up a good performance, and then it just sort of peters out. So
I can't work out with
they all
Safir
flatter
whether
to
he
deceive.
ran an absolutely fantastic race or whether him being so prominent at the finish actually drags the quality of the race down. Time will tell on that. Let's look at the 2 mile scene. Champion Chase. Special Tiara, it was fabulous to see that one get a big one. Jumped and stayed really well and repelled Fox Norton. But obviously the story of the race was Duvan with the injured pelvis. They're saying it's not too bad, so they're saying we're going to see him again, which is fantastic news. Let's just look at Paddy Power's prices for next year's for the 2018 Champion Chase, and then we can discuss who we fancy. Because Altior is 6-4 favourite, 3 Duvan, 7 Min, 8 York Hill, 20 Specials Tiara, 20 Sharble, 20 Fox Norton, and 33 Bar. And I suppose within the debate about the 2018 Champion Chase, we need to tie in Altior and his Racing Post Arkle victory. So, Watsy, we'll start with you. What do you make of the whole 2 mile scene now after last week?
Yeah, I was probably as stunned as everyone else was last week. I'd actually transferred before the Champion Chase over to the middle of the course to get ready for the cross country, and I thought I'll just watch this one on the screen because Duvan's going to go and win 10 lengths. It'll be boring. It was anything but, obviously, what happened to him. When we see him again and what trip that'll be over, I'm not sure. Could be anything. He could go up in trip. We mooted it a lot this season. Never happened. Could happen next season. Altior, a few people saying he was workmanlike, he wasn't great winning the Arkle, but I don't know what these people want. Charbel's a very good horse. I'm not surprised that Charbel was going as well as he was when he fell 2 out. I really rate that horse quite highly. I think Altior would have got to him anyway, so I think there's a tendency, when the horses falls on, you expect them to lap their rivals, and it was never going to happen. They're good horses he's beating. So he's the right market leader.
Did you see Mark Scully on the Racing Post on the mobile piece? His review of it, he called it the flop of the week.
Flop, I think that's nonsense. It's absolutely rubbish.
But having said that, though, Maddie, I mean, what was your view after the article? Did you think to yourself, or were you like, wow, that was really, really decent?
I'm a bit weird when it comes to York Hill. When it comes to Altior, I watched it and I immediately, I think as everyone was, I was a bit sort of like downbeat on it. And I thought maybe Charbel would have been,
as you youngsters say, yeah.
Do we? Well. That's news to me. Yeah, so I was a bit downbeat on him. But then I watched it again and I just sort of thought, well, he definitely would have won. Yes, it wouldn't have been great, massively impressive, but horses do have their off days. For me, considering the ground was rapid, Altior, for me, a lot of people disagree with this. I think in the majority of his races, he just engages overdrive right at the end. Although he's not slow and, he's a rattling good 2-mile chaser, he... when there's that bit cut in the ground, it really helps him. When they go really fast, it really helps him. I wouldn't be surprised if he was just as good up, 2.5 sort of thing. He is fantastic when he gets that cut in the ground and when he gets that strong pace, as probably like we saw at Newbury. But in terms of the Arkle, I think what happened was it probably just it wasn't absolutely ideal for him, but he still won. He was still very, very strong at the finish.
Think he would have beat Charbel?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it would have been, fireworks. But yeah, I think the interesting one in the Champion Chase market at the minute, although I've always been Team Altior over Min, is Min. Ruby Walsh compared him to Corto Star, I believe. And obviously he's one of those sort of exuberant types that's really fun to watch. So it'd be interesting to see, who knows, Willie Mullins. But you'd expect him to stay over 2 miles. I would presume he'd stay over 2 miles. So maybe he's the one that we've sort of forgotten about.
Indeed. Altior 6-4. That's on the skinny side for me, Brennan. What's your view?
I'm not sure if there's much depth to the race. I wouldn't like to be much bigger about him. What have you got running for you? Min, Duvan. Duvan should be... Maybe it is short, but I would be inclined to agree with Maddie. There wasn't any stage when I didn't think the horse was going to win. And last year over hurdles, he did hit flat spots in his races before the overdrive kicked in. So it might have it hasn't been happening this year over fences, in fairness. But maybe the races have been falling asunder a bit. Fox Norton didn't run his race at Newbury. And as Nick says, Charbel's a good horse. I always thought he was going to win. And I think he's the right favourite. And given I can only come up with 3 real contenders, I don't think I'd be a lot bigger, Bruce.
I'd have Duvan beating him.
You would have Duvan.
I would absolutely have a race fit Duvan.
Yes.
I'd have him beating Altior. Nick, what do you think?
Well, having said we don't know where Duvan's going to go next year, I'd be inclined to give him another season at 2 miles.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they will do. You've got to look at what they've got. Erndersau is now the boss as far as the Ryanair goes. They can step York Hill up. They've got Cheltenham. Look, we don't know. I mean, we don't know what Willie does the week before Cheltenham, so it's ridiculous trying to tell a year before. But I agree with you because I think they'll feel they've got unfinished business with him at 2 miles.
Yeah,
the only thing I'd say is from an anti-post point of view, I do think Altior has to be favoured because he's definitely going for the race and he's not coming back off an injury.
No, fair enough. But that 6-4 is no good to me with 363 days to go. Let's have a quick spin through the Ryanair prices from Paddy Power. Then Erndersau 4-1, York Hill 8-1, 10 Top Notch, 10 Jacadam, 14 Charbel, 20 Sub Lieutenant, 20 Disco. Any value there, Maddie?
I don't know. To be honest, as is the case with a lot of these markets, I prefer to just wait a little bit and actually see because I'm sure something else is going to come out of the water. You never know. Something like Might Bite, if he went for the Ryanair, that would be cracking to see. I just don't know. I wouldn't be confident in backing anything at the minute.
Oh, no, it is ridiculously early, for sure. There's no question about it. But against that, when these markets first come up, it's quite interesting to just see, if there is any early value. I know a lot of people do try and snare some really big prices, but you'd hold for now, would you? Any early thoughts, Nick, from you on the run? I mean, first of all, let's pay tribute to Erndersau. It was a terrific victory, wasn't it?
Fantastic victory. Slightly annoying as I was on Sub-Lieutenant and I was hoping he might fold up the hill, but he didn't. To be fair, he saw it out really well. He jumped really well, so fantastic performance. As for next year, I mentioned it earlier, but I just wonder if there's a touch of the one-mans about Jack Adam. He definitely doesn't stay 3-2, but the way he travels through his races, I just wonder if 2 mile 5, if they blast off in front, he's normally a very, very good jumper. He can just use that cruising speed, and he's not going to be done for stamina at the end of the race, which he seems to have done, in the last 3 years.
Has he got the speed, though, to win a Ryanair?
But he's won 2 John Durkins over 2.5.
Yeah, but it's a different race. It's a different race.
I'm just floating it. I think it might be interesting over.
I think that's where he might have to end up, but I'm not sure. I think he might be a bit of a minister without portfolio. Any thoughts on the mid-range chasers, Brendan? Any thoughts on value for the Ryanair next year?
No, I don't think there is any value. When you mentioned Charbel there at 20-1, I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I remembered back that they didn't go for the intermediate race this year because of their noble ambition to go and win the best race. So they might run him in the champion chase.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I seriously think he would have taken a lot of passing.
So I'm not convinced that he needs... often people have this obsession with stepping up in trip. I don't necessarily think he would get home over 2.5.
Charbel.
Yeah,
I think
just leave it.
Yeah.
If it's not broken, don't fix it.
So there's plenty of reasons why he won't run it. So I'm not backing him.
Fair enough. You'll hold fire on that then. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Right. Let's have a quick competition. Is your chance to win a free £25 or €25 bet with Paddy Power. All you've got to do is let us know who is favourite with Paddy Power for next year's champion chase. We've only just mentioned it. Tweet your answer using the hashtag Postcast, and we'll announce the winner on Friday's show. The money will be paid into your account, so you do need a Paddy Power account. So just tweet using the hashtag Postcast with the name of the horse who is Paddy Power's favourite for next year's champion chase. Hurdlers next.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP5 in all races at one meeting today. And at one meeting every day this month. Max £25 per race, not available in shops. 18 plus, gambleaware.co.uk.
Welcome back. It's Bruce Millington, Maddie Playle, Nick Watts and Brendan Duke. We're chewing the fat on a great week at Cheltenham. We looked at the chases. Now let's look at the hurdlers. There was a feeling going into the champion hurdle that it wasn't particularly a great race. It was very competitive and there was no real star in there. But Bouverdare came and absolutely grabbed it by the scruff of the neck. He was really, really good, wasn't he? Maddie, what was your thoughts on the champion hurdle? And a really, really good winner, wasn't it?
Yeah, do you know what? He surprised me. And I was in that sort of camp, a long time beforehand. I was thinking, oh, it's not a great race. But, directly before the race, I was actually thinking, you know what? Just because there's not one specific standout doesn't mean it's not a great race. There were so many of them that you thought, there's not a lot between these. And I was the same as everyone. I thought Bouverdare, I think 2.5 is his optimum and he probably wants a little bit more cut in the ground. But he just travelled through that race like an absolute demon. He was hugely impressive. I'm a big Bouverdare fan. I said on Twitter the other day, by the end of the week, it's almost like it was forgotten, and you shouldn't forget a performance like that.
It was performance of the week.
I
thought it was the performance of the week, personally. Nick, what did you make of him?
Really liked him. I've always really liked this horse. It was a funny race for me, the champion hurdle, because I was always dead against Yanworth. I couldn't have had Yanworth over 2 miles at all, so it didn't surprise me how he ran. I just couldn't quite work out beforehand who was the one that was going to take advantage, and it was Bouverdare. Won very nicely. He's the right favourite for next season. I thought he won with a lot in hand. I feel a bit sorry for my tent or yours. He's a cracking horse.
He doesn't care. Horses don't mind. They don't know where they finish, mate. That's the beauty
true.
of it.
That's true. But if he's feeling sorry for himself in his box, he doesn't need to.
I don't think he
great.
will. No, he did. He ran really, really well, didn't he?
I think he was ridden brilliantly. I must say that because he was instead of they didn't try and force anything on him. They just literally left him alone. Left him travel, which is all he does, for as long as they could, and then, press the button when they had to. And I think he ran really well. Credit to Nicky Henderson.
Oh, for sure. Great performance. Paddy Power bet on the 2018 champion hurdle. 4-1 Bouverdare, 11-2 Defi de Soy, 6 Faheen, 8 Annie Power, 14 Le Bacon, 16 Bar, which includes Melon, 20 Petit Mouchoir. Brennan, do you think there's any juice in next year? And what is your verdict on Bouverdare?
He was great. What you wanted to see in that race, obviously we lacked your foresight for the race, Bruce. But I didn't think
Bruce Foresight. If I did a tipping column, that's what I'd call it.
Well, excellent. Well, we certainly in this race you had it down. But I didn't think anything could win. But what I wanted to happen was for a horse to go and bolt up, which was exactly what happened. And if, as Nicky said beforehand, he thought he had the tent back to virtually his best, then he's a really solid yardstick to suggest it was a decent decent renewal of the champion hurdle. So I was delighted to see such an impressive performance. If I was having a bet next year, I might chance Mellon. I thought he had a couple of sloppy jumps, maybe a little bit of inexperience. He's only a shell of a horse. I saw him in Leopardstown. He should do plenty of developing over the summer. Did you say he was 16 to 1?
16s, yeah.
I might chance Mellon at 16s, but as Nick says, Beauvoir entitled to be fav.
Right, you've got a free shot at glory, Maddie. Who wins next year?
Totally agree. Looking at the market, Mellon for me ran an awesome race in the Supreme. A lot of people have this thing where, he didn't win, and I know a lot of people were on big money anti-post, but no, I think he ran an awesome race, and he's very, to do what he did after just having the one run was extraordinary. Bouvardere, like you say, has a rightful place at the top of the market. The one thing I would say is Defi Desoy, again, I feel like I'm being a bit harsh on these horses, but he did really well, and he won the Triumph, which, again, I'm not convinced yet that it's an outstanding renewal, but he won it like a good thing. But since I've seen this horse, I've seen him in the flesh a few times, and he's very small. He doesn't have that much scope. He jumps like a chaser, which is perhaps, a little bit surprising. And it was interesting that Philip Hobbs said, he could go to the Arkle, which would be very interesting. But to have him at 11-2 for a champion hurdle, no, thank you.
Scrubs out 11-2. Defi Desoy looks valued, doesn't it, Nick? Is the next question.
I thought he won the Triumph very nicely, and I think he deserves a shot at the champion hurdle next year. So I was really kind of perturbed to hear Philip Hobbs afterwards say, well, he might go for the Arkle. I think that's disappointing.
I do. I thought that was a fantastic victory.
What's the hurry to see?
He's
got all the time in the world to go.
He could always go afterwards, yeah.
Exactly.
Do you think they get obsessed with this, got almost what's seen as a hex with the 5-year-olds, that they just don't do well, I mean, they shouldn't, because, Catch It, lovely horse though he was, wasn't the greatest, and yet he won it at 5, didn't he? I thought Defi was brilliant. I'd love to see him in the hurdling ranks next year. It really, really bolster it for me.
Yeah, he would. He had the race one at the bottom, turning in. Mm. And races at Cheltenham on that particular course where you've got such a long run to the last hurdle, and then you've got the hill. To have it won, turning in.
He was in total control, wasn't he?
He's very, very talented.
Control.
He was in total control there. But, with Faheen potentially coming back and Annie next year as well, I mean, the hurdling scene now is got a nice feel about it. And the other thing I'd say about Bouvardere, Nick, is that was as fast as he wants it. So next year, I mean, if when the winter ground kicks in, he's got a pretty lucrative year lined up next year, you'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah, he's going to be winning his trial races, you would think, wouldn't he? He'd probably go for the international, something like that, possibly a Christmas hurdle. But yeah, that 4-1 could look very decent. I remember you saying, was it you saying before the race that he was about 4-1? You said, well, 3 horses aren't going to beat him. He's a brilliant each way price.
That's the thing. You could get 4-1 a quarter of the 3. I said I can just about see one horse beating him, but I cannot see 3 of them beating it. And so it turned out. Now then, if that was a good moment in the Millington betting week, the meeting got off with a terrible start. I mean, Mellon, you're so right. He ran a great race. He really did me proud. I've had the most fun out of that. But that bet lasted me 6 months, and I absolutely loved it. But to get done by a horse who refused at Laytown and got beat at Lingfield on the all-weather, I mean, it just doesn't get any worse. But the thing with this Lebec is that if he starts, he's absolutely unbelievable, isn't he? I mean, that Supreme win was phenomenal, wasn't it?
I really, really like that Supreme beforehand as well. Really, really liked it. I think there's a few in that. I think I backed River Wild, and he ran a great race
good,
as well.
Yeah. The thing is, can they get this thing to start all the time, Maddie?
Well, they managed it at Cheltenham, on the biggest stage of all, like you say.
But they were using the long whip, which they're not allowed in Ireland. So they've got ongoing problems there, haven't they? But I mean, if he starts, he's lethal, isn't he?
I mean, he had started in Ireland. I think he finished behind a horse called Forge Meadow. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he didn't really come anywhere.
Well, no, but he started off 100 yards behind them. That should have been deemed a refusal, and he shouldn't have run, and Mellon should have run. And then my treble on Mellon, Bouvardere, and whatever won the race, Apple's Jade, which would have won me $6,000, would have won. So I'm not bitter, and I'm not going to mention it at all. But anyway, you were saying, Maddie.
Yeah, I just think these characters, Might Bite, Lebec, these stories are just brilliant for racing. They're just fantastic to watch, and it would be quite nice, wouldn't it, if he proved to be a proper champion hurdle contender. And on the back of the Supreme, you'd sort of be asking yourself, well, if he starts, it's a big if, then why not? As I've said before, if any, I would be looking at Mellon at this stage, and I do think Bouvardere is probably a pretty solid price.
And what about Jack Kennedy on Lebake? He's some rider, this boy, isn't he, Nick?
Yeah, he's only 17, isn't he? Extraordinary. I think I was doing my A-levels when at that age, not riding horses around Cheltenham. Yeah, it was a very, very cool ride on what is obviously a very difficult horse. So I think the point about Lebake, there's no hard and fast rule, but I think once horses get it in their mind once that they're going to refuse, I think at some stage it's going to happen again. So he's always going to be a very risky proposition. And I would wager now that this was the high moment. I don't know if there'll be another one.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about the long-distance hurdlers then, because Nichols Canyon, who was a forgotten horse by many people, showed his class and won the Stayers Hurdle in very, very good style indeed. And if we look at the prices for next year's Stayers Hurdle, we will see, he says, desperately padding out because his fat fingers have misplaced the market on that. The Paddy Power bet 6-1 got there in the end. Nichols Canyon 12, you know what I mean, Harry. 12 Penn Hill, who won the Albert Bartlett. 14 Apples Jade, 14 Yanworth, 16 Willoughby Court, and 25-1 Bar. Brendan Duke, you can go first. Who's the value for next year's Stayers Hurdle?
Oh, Willoughby Court. Well, I think that was really strong form beating the. But I mean. Is
beating the Wolf.
He's going to go chasing, isn't he?
Is he going to go chasing?
Yeah,
oh,
I think
God.
so.
Right, okay, so he's no value.
The Wolf's going chasing as well, isn't
the
it?
Wolf's definitely.
Presume so, yeah.
Was that your low point of the week, Brendan, the Wolf?
It was financially, but again, it was a thrilling race. And
what was the non-financial low point?
The non-financial, well, probably Duvan.
Oh, right, okay.
Because I just expected a coronation, and then
there wasn't some tragicomedic off-the-field incident involving you, no?
No, I think I managed to.
Were you well behaved all week?
Oh well, I was very, very well behaved. I mean, because it's a meeting that takes a savage toll on both man and beast. I was in bed by midnight every night, and I still crawled out of the place. You know the way when you're walking sometimes, and your upper body is dragging your lower body along.
I was wondering where that's going from.
Honestly, Maddie, you've got all this to come when you get older. It is a brutal week, isn't it? I was sitting on my sofa yesterday, and I was just feeling absolutely wiped out. And I was thinking, well, if this is what it's like at Cheltenham, imagine coming back from Glastonbury. It'd just be absolutely hideous, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you haven't got a Stayers Hurdle thought for us?
I haven't. No. It's just when you're reading it out, but it's completely flawed logic because Willoughby will go chasing. So I've got nothing. Good performance by the winner.
It certainly was.
Very, very good from Ruby to pick him. I definitely would have ridden Shane's Hill. So he picked.
Yeah, I put that beforehand. I definitely have Shane's Hill ahead of Nichols Canyon here. 5 seconds after the race. No, I wouldn't. I don't think I would actually.
And Nick, commiserations with Jet Ski, who you'd obviously nurtured that bet all winter, but didn't quite happen, did it?
No, he was kind of in the same camp as Nichols Canyon in that he was a very, very good hurdler over shorter trips, and Nichols Canyon wasn't a certainty to get the 3 miles, and neither was Jet Ski, but Nichols Canyon got it nicely. I think what might have put people off Nichols Canyon is in the weeks beforehand, Willie Mullins wasn't very enthusiastic at all, and said he might not even go to Cheltenham, might keep him for Punchestown because he wasn't firing. Obviously, he fired at the last minute because Ruby didn't switch to him, but he chose him, and he's won very nicely. If you wanted a bet for next year for the Stayers Hurdle, I agree with Paul Keeley in today's post, actually. If Apples Jade done the mares race now, looks a thorough stayer, beats Limity and Vroom Vroom Magpie, outstaying them, essentially. I think 3 miles could suit, Apples Jade 14-1, big price.
Yeah, she's got a big heart, her, isn't she? Because she looked beaten to all intents and purposes, didn't she? And got back up. That was very impressive. OK, we will touch on all sorts of other angles in just a mo.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP Fav in all races at one meeting today. And at one meeting every day this month. Max £25 per race, not available in shops. 18 plus, gambleaware.co.uk.
OK, first of all, let's see if there's a handicap horse that took your eye. Maybe got beat, but you thought, that's got a potential future. Nick Watts, anything?
Yeah, Premier Bond was third in the Kim Muir, I think, staying on very nicely. I think the plan's to go for the Scottish National with him next. And, I think he's a strong stayer. He could have a good chance in that. OK,
Maddie?
Oh, don't mention the Kim Muir.
Why?
I was all over... No, I was all over What's Happening. And he decided to... The jockey, probably half sensibly, decided to go very, very wide the whole way. And sort of about 4 out, he was still travelling, and I was very keen because I was on him at quite a big price. And then he just found nothing. But to be honest, I'm sort of with Nick. He's a similar type. I'm very sure that he'd probably go to the Scottish National. And he just loves quick ground. Maybe it was a bit of a bounce factor after he ran so well at Exeter behind Perfect Candidate.
So you're looking to get
yeah.
your money back at Air on Premier Bond.
No, on what's happening.
Oh, sorry,
yeah,
on what's
yeah.
happening. And Brendan, what about you? What
There
did
was a
your
horse
beady eyes pick up on?
There was one in the Fred Winter, Diablo de Savola, finished 5th, got very badly messed around going after the second hurdle away from the stands the first time, totally lost his position. I actually think it could have won the race. The race was won by a stablemate, another Nick Williams horse. I think it could have won. It definitely would have finished closer. And the fact it finished 5th, the handicapper might miss it. There'll surely be a race for that in the spring.
Righty-ho. Let's quickly touch on the mares' hurdle, which Paddy Power are betting on for next year. And it's 3-1 Let's Dance, 5 Apples Jade, 11-2 Limini, 13-2 Vroom Vroom Mag, 8-1 Annie Power. Any juice in any of that lot, Maddie?
Don't know if there's any juice. I was very impressed with Let's Dance, and I think the step up to 2.5 will really, really suit her. I don't think you should underplay that performance. She was really, really impressive. As was Apples Jade in the race this year. It'd be interesting if she does go further. Yeah, again, I'd be inclined to wait, but I do think Let's Dance won really nicely.
She was good, wasn't she, Nick? And by the way, that put the lid on an absolute masterclass by Ruby that day, didn't it? It was fantastic, wasn't it? He can do it absolutely always.
The range of different rides he gave so many different horses. On Nichols Canyon, his ride on Nichols Canyon was brilliant because, the horse just injected that late pace that he has. He just left him alone and then, powered up the straight. I think it was just fabulous.
What was the riding performance of the week for you, Nick?
It would be Ruby on York Hill. I think the horse is...
He almost jumped into the infield at the first, didn't he? I thought, here we go.
He's a supremely talented horse, but by all accounts, he's a bit mental as well. And I wouldn't fancy him at all if anybody else was on him. You remember him at Aintree last year and Paul Townend rode him. He's virtually unrideable. Ruby on York Hill is just amazing to watch.
He was good, wasn't he? What about you, Brendan? Was there a particular performance from the saddle that stood out?
I thought Robbie Power was superb in the Gold Cup. I would also give a mention to Davy Russell, just for his consistent level of performance. Now, obviously, the horse who won the Pertemps, I'd have won on that. It was that well in. But the ride on Whisper, the ride on Dandridge, the ride on Noble Endeavour, every one of them given the optimum chance to win the race. He's a brilliant jockey, full stop, Davy Russell, but he knows Cheltenham like the back of his hand.
OK, Maddie, what do you give the festival out of 10 this year?
I'd give it a solid 9.
Solid
9. Yeah, I do an awful lot of moaning, don't I? But I can't moan.
No, it was damn good, wasn't it?
It was lots of competitive racing, and it was entertaining, I would say, above anything else. It was, the amount of close finishes we had.
Fantastic. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? You let the ratings bores stand there and say, oh, it wasn't a great race, wasn't brilliant. The race itself is fantastic. It's always good quality. Yes, it might not have been in every single instance the greatest we've ever seen, but you're not going to get that every single year, are you? No. Nick, what about you? What do you give it out of 10?
I always give it, win, lose or draw, I think it always is a 10. And we always moan in the build-up to it that it's got too intense and it's too big and the preview nights are out of control and all these horses are missing. But when we get down to the Supreme Novices and we're there watching it all there on the track, we all love it.
And also, if you think the build-up's excessive, disengage. Go and read a magazine. Go and do something else. You don't have to...
Go and read the Racing Post.
Well, no, you can't read the Racing Post because it's full of Cheltenham, but read something else. Brendan, what about you? You were over all 4 days, weren't you? Did you enjoy yourself?
I very much enjoyed myself. So I'll go with a 9. I would just say there's a potential for upgrade and downgrade because I have to go and see the doctor for a checkup. So we'll see what the physical toll it took on me was, and depending on that, I'll reserve judgment for a week or so.
Oh, I hope you're okay. But of course, you were pining as well, weren't you? Because you're in love now, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. No,
was there an emotional reunion?
Oh, there was on the Sunday, and she'd had a few drinks as well. Ireland were playing England in the rugby. So she'd been out drinking all day. So I always find that's very useful.
And has she forgiven you for the faux pas that you revealed in I think it was Thursday's Postcast, where you'd referred to an incident that was actually a previous girl? That's all in the past now.
Well, she's totally over that. She knows how lucky she is.
Excellent. And one other thing I would say, by the way, I thought Simon Clay's got the going absolutely spot on. I know there were people moaning about the watering that took place on the Wednesday night, but it was good, safe ground. Yes, I can understand the Cole Harden team having the ump, but it's very unlikely you're going to get it like a road. I thought it was pretty fair, didn't you?
Yeah, I think especially with all the awful, fatalities we had last year, had so many. They're under an awful lot of pressure, and I think you can't really make excuses for a horse on that sort of ground.
No. It was excellent. OK, one anti-post bet each for next year. We'll start with you, Brennan Duke.
I will go for Might Bite in the Gold Cup. I hadn't factored in Maddie's point about the Scorpions having a sting in the tail relative to their kinks, but I don't think he's that kinky, is he, Maddie? I mean, would a set of blinkers not do the job fine for him?
That would terrify me. I think that would
Really?
make it worse.
Why?
No.
That's what they're there for, isn't it?
No, I don't know. I think he's. I think that would just light him up even more, and he would just go absolutely berserk.
What about a
But he-
goat? A pet goat?
Do the whole Monolith trick?
Remittance Man had one of those, didn't he? So maybe Nicky can do
Yeah,
it again.
Remittance Man. Yeah, Remittance Man and Monolith both had
I
goats.
think it's an inherent sort of just mental. You know, he's so talented, but I would love to see him do
lit up in
well.
the race, did he? I mean, he just travelled and jumped in his comfort zone, which so few horses are comfortable with. I mean, both Davy and Ruby, who were second and third, were, well, I'm having none of this. And Alpha and Acapella, who tried to go with him, just paid a heavy price. I think I think he's like Denman. He just travels and jumps. I mean, that was my main takeout from the race, was his jumping performance. I didn't think he had that in him, because he'd been inclined to make mistakes. He was flawless up until the time he had a look into the Guinness stand. I think get a pair of blinkers on him. He'll go and he'll probably have a go at the million next year, win in Haydock, win in Kempton, and he'd be favourite for the Gold Cup.
I think certainly out of all those prices I've seen and we've touched on today, the one that could be, you could look back and say, Jesus, how the hell was he 14-1? Is that Might Bite, isn't it? What about you, Nick? What's your anti-post morsel?
Apple's Jade for the Stays Hurdle next year, and a couple of mad ones who I haven't got prices for. Penn Hill, I think, could be interesting in the Melbourne Cup. I think Woody's got plans to put it on the flat this summer. He strikes me as just the right sort for that. And Let's Dance, massively impressed with her. I think she should be thought of as a champion hurdle horse next season.
Okay, Maddie?
Big Willoughby Court fan. I think we were talking about
RSA.
jockeys. He's not slow. I'd be inclined to go maybe JLT. We were mentioning jockeys earlier. I think David Bass is so underrated, especially when he front runs. The horse, his hurdling was absolutely spot on. Everyone was saying, how amazing Neon Wolf was. And Willoughby Court, I think that wasn't any sort of fluke. He's really, really classy. He's a chaser. When he goes chasing, if he goes to the JLT, I would be all over him. I think people are probably going to forget about him, and that's just absolutely wrong.
David Bass is apparently literally the fittest jockey out there.
Are we saying
In terms
physical
of-
fitness or
Yeah,
way?
he's done bleep tests and all sorts, and he comes out on top. He is supremely fit.
And Paddy Power goes 16-1. Willoughby Court for the RSA. They haven't priced up the JLT
Still
yet.
probably take it wherever he goes. Love him.
Excellent. Okie dokie. Thank you very much indeed, Maddie. Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Brendan. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget, if you want a chance to win a £25 or €25 bet with Paddy Power, all you've got to do is tweet us using the hashtag Postcast and let us know who is favourite with Paddy Power for next year's Champion Chase. I'll give you a clue. It begins with A. Thank you very much. We are back on Friday for the Weekend Postcast.
Paddy Power stream all UK and Irish racing live on your mobile, tablet or PC. Unlike some other high street bookies, Paddy Power, you beauty!